So Arsenal 1, Brentford 1. All roads lead to Madrid right now. Make sure you're subbing. Make sure you follow Kenny Ken 1972 on Insta. But for 61 minutes, it wasn't the prettiest affair. In fact, for the whole 90 minutes, it wasn't the prettiest affair. But for 61 minutes of that, we were in total control of a football match. Brentford looked weak. They looked spineless. Not the Brentford we've seen this season. Just going through the motions, I think, both teams. However, they didn't look threatening one bit. And then David Raya rolls the ball out. Declan Rice slaloms a tackle. Boom, he's gone. He's looking left and right. Lays it off outside of the boots of Party. Bosh, 1-0. What a counter-attack. Soon as that goal goes in, our manager decides to make a treble sub. He takes off Kieran Tierney, who was superb, by the way. He took off Zinchenko, and everyone knows my thoughts on him. Superb. And he takes off Ethan, who I thought he was struggling a little bit here and there. He weren't great. And he brings on Martin Odegaard.
Oh, God.
My days, Kenny. Yeah, that right there, that last half an hour, that captain is an absolute disgrace. He's nicking £250,000 a week.
You know, I hear you.
We got worse the minute he stepped on the pitch, Kenny. Declan Rice, you didn't see it, obviously, because you're in the ground. Declan Rice, when they conceded that goal and he went off, he was absolutely fuming on the bench. Going crazy.
But the thing with Declan Rice is...
That's why Madrid have a chance, by the way, Kenny. Because of that fuck-up in the last half an hour of that game.
But that's been us for a long time. You think about the Fulham game, in the last home game in London Derby. Coincidence, it was a West London club. Another coincidence, fans are basically putting their tickets on ticket exchange. They want to start saving their money because they think that we're going to be in a semi-final. And that apathy spreads to the team. But let's talk about Martin Odegaard, because I think that's a very important point. I've been on a couple of shows, Hybrid Squad. I was on Dan's show yourself, and I said that, maybe he can do a bit of credit in the bank because of what he's done the last 2 years. But I think when you see performance like this, and it's becoming now repetitive now, sometimes I think his credits run out. I don't think he because for reasons, when he came on, there was one thing he did, and I say it, well, obviously there's kids watching, but he absolutely peed me off. He really made me angry. And what he did is that he's playing deep, and there was no one near him, but for some reason he decided to jink turn, and he was basically jinking and turning and trying to turn himself into knots. And I was thinking, hang on here, I'm beginning to see why people are getting exasperated by him. And when he came on, there were times when I was thinking, mate, please, man, you scored 15 goals 2 seasons ago. Just have a dig. But he waits and waits and waits. And he goes on like he's some sort of like
Maverick. He's like a maverick. Yeah.
He goes on like he's like Ozil. Don't get me wrong. Ozil used to do these sort of things. But the thing with Ozil had world-class ability. He wasn't world-class at Ozil, but he had world-class ability. This guy is a hard-working player, and he's got to realise that when he's off form, people are going to begin to ask questions of him. People are going to be questioning his validity as our captain. Because at the end of the day, when you're a captain of a football team, you have to be worth your place inside. And it's not just, you could give him injuries after injuries, but he's been back solidly for the last 5 months, and it hasn't improved. He may be playing in pain, maybe so, but there's... But
Kenny, he looks like he's playing, and every time he touches the ball, he's getting electrocuted.
Yeah, but I know, but the thing about the guy, right, is that it's hard when you look at his performances. Even when he comes up, it's hard to give him anything. You can't give him 7 out of 10 because when you look at other players, you think, right, he's not going to let me down today. He may not be as good as my most talented player, Saka, but he won't let me down today. When you look at him, you're thinking, I don't know what he gave us. Saka, when he came on, gave us quite a bit. Saka,
he gave us a problem and a mess.
He gave us a problem and a mess. And, Lewis Skelly looked good when he came on. But at the end of the day, it's a situation where Arsenal will basically concentrate on one thing and one thing only. And that was to make sure there was no significant injuries going to Madrid. And I don't mean, people said, yeah, but Jorginho got injured. But let's face it, Jorginho is a sort of player that you might bring on if it's 3-0 and we score in the last minute, make it 3-1. You say to Jorginho, you know what? Keep the ball away from Madrid. He's not a guy who's going to win us the tie. and make sure we win it. He's just a guy that we're going to bring on to waste time. So really and truly, that's not a significant injury. And I think when you look at Brentford, they came for a point, and that's exactly what they got. But when you look at the context of the game, the first half was basically synonymous of the Fulham game. Nothing in it, nothing to write home about. You know, Ethan and Yeri, and I'm sorry, guys, but there's good things he does, but bad things. Let's talk about the good things. The good things he did today is that even though Kieran Tierney's goal got disallowed, the way he got out and he crossed the ball, and there were times when he was trying to make things happen from the right-hand side. He's no Saka. He hasn't got Saka's pace as such, and he hasn't got his strength, but that will come. But the bad thing is that I saw his manager having to micromanage him on the field, because when Brentford break down a left-hand side, Ifranieri is ball watching. He's letting, like I said, the left back get into positions where they weren't getting into space. And I'm telling you now, mate, he needs to work on that, because 4 years ago, we were talking about Smith Rowe being the future of the side. What happened? He's in that Fulham. Now, I don't want that for Ethan. But if you want to play under this manager, then you have to work hard off the ball and look and like I said, concentrate when you're on the ball. Don't just concentrate when the ball, when we're on the attack and you're getting the ball. You have to be able to anticipate what your opponent is doing. And there was loads of times when Mikel Arteta was getting frustrated with him. And I said to my mate next to me, I said, mate, if he carries on, ball watching and not watching the play, then he's not going to have many minutes in the second half. And that's exactly what happened. He only got 15 minutes, when really and truly we could have done with him playing the whole 90. But it wasn't just him. You think about Brentford's goal as well. Obviously, first and foremost, let's talk about the positive thing. The positive thing was Declan Rice's burst of pace. It reminded me of, right? He's not that player, but it reminded me of Lothar Matthäus back in his day, where you basically turned defensive attack, not by passing it, by getting it and driving. He drove and caused panic. And I liked about Declan? Fans are saying, pass. And Declan just wait the right time, wait for Thomas Partey.
And he had his head up and he was looking both sides.
Martinelli, listen to Martinelli, by the way. But anyway, he had his head up on both sides, and he said, right, I'm going to give the ball to Thomas Partey when he's in the right position to get out of his feet and have a first-time shot on goal. And that's exactly what happened. It was a beautiful goal. Two players, best players on Tuesday, combined. And then it was a case of, this is where we go wrong, and this is why we won't win the league. When Arsenal score, instead of just hammering teams and going for it, what they do is they wait for teams to make the mistake, wait for them to, have Willie Young moments, and then they capitalise, rather than thinking, you know what, this team is a goal down, they're on the back foot, let's go for the kill. And that's probably what's cost us the league. Because, for instance, I had a conversation with a friend of mine behind me, and he was saying, West Ham can win at Liverpool, and if we win today, and then after the match I said, this is why we didn't win the league, it's because of the situations in the last 15 or 20 minutes, when instead of going for that kill, we just make ourselves comfortable. And what happens? We get too comfortable, and then we have two silly moments. I think everyone talks about what led up to the goal, but before that, there was a bit. Brentford got out of their half pretty easily, and then Mbeumo had a one-on-one situation. Obviously, Marzouskili puts out for the corner, and then in the second phase of play, it happened again, where again we're asleep down the left-hand side. It seems, and I'm not going to be critical of the lad, because he's a fantastic player, but it always seems that our left-hand side, you have to try and attack it, because you found that Martinelli was on his last legs, and he was shattered. But he had to use every last bit of energy. Instead of trying to go help us go for that second goal, he was helping out Marzouskili, because that is another thing where both our young players, both fantastic talents. Obviously, Marzouskili is way, way, way in front of him when you're in terms of development, but he can always catch up. He's got that kind of dozy moments where teams can attack us down our left-hand side, and that's where the goal came from.
We didn't see that when Tierney was on the pitch, by the way.
And you won't see it
because he can actually defend.
Yeah, it's all about experience, isn't it? And that's the situation. When you look at Tony C's performance defensively, I thought he's fantastic, but on the ball. I thought he was great, but there was one time when I thought he was Johnny Wilkinson with one of his crosses.
The one where it loops up in the air.
Yeah, it looks like me. I was looking at Arteta.
It must have bubbled Kenny because he's world class.
I know, but Arteta's face was a picture. Arteta was not amused by that, and there is a situation. But then again, Thomas Partey went down the right hand side and put a very good cross in. No,
Partey was quality, but again, it's another game where he's played right back, Kenny, and he scored, and we've dropped points. Right back, we've won 1 out of 8 since he's played right back.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's actually not him playing bad at right back. It's us missing in midfield.
It's the rest of the chance.
And that's the thing. You take Thomas Partey out of midfield at your peril because that's where it's at its weakest. But then again, you've got to remember one thing. At least Declan Rice thought, you know what, I've got a responsibility to run the show, and in all intents and purposes, he did. He was doing a cross-field passing. He was running. He was organising. You know, I think that's probably his better performance as a number 6. Obviously, he's played his best football in the football club as a number 8. But today, number 6, I was quite pleased with him. And in fact, it was a very good game. And a footnote to what we're going to say is that he was very, 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 very angry when he got taken off. He was like, me? Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like that. And I understand why Mikel Arteta does that because, you know, when we were going for our podcast, I kept just saying Declan was going to want to play, so the demand to play. You had to play Kivior and Saliba together. And by the way, special mention to Saliba. I thought he was fantastic today. You know, he got himself out of dangerous situations. He gave Wiss enough. It's a shame that, you know, Wiss got the goal because I thought his performance was exemplary. I thought Kivior looked, like decent today as well. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of apathy in the ground. The fact that fans left with 10 minutes ago because they want to watch some golfing tournament or they just want to get their trains.
They've done enough of watching Odegaard for 19 minutes.
Maybe it's what you read into it. But all I'm saying is that we see Easter holidays. The kids' first day of school was on the 7th. You're not rushing them home. I don't know what you're rushing for. Maybe you're trying to rush your Easter break. But if you're going to come, leave them before 10 minutes. But then again, it's one of those things where no one at the club believes we can win the league. No one at the club, sadly, gives a damn when we win the league as well, because all our eggs are in that basket on Wednesday, and that's where everyone's minds are. The manager's minds is on Wednesday, the players' minds are on Wednesday, and the fans' minds are on Wednesday. You speak to a lot of the Diagooners, and the first thing they've told me is, first question they've asked me, Ken, when are we going to see you again? You come Madrid? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to Ipswich. Oh, no, I'm going to do Ipswich as well. But the buzz around Madrid is that everyone's talking about. If you speak to fans, it's all about that game on Wednesday. And it's a shame because it's a televised game. It's every game at Arsenal plays a big game. You've got 60,000 fans, but you got 2 teams who weren't interested in winning a game. The home team was interested in preventing injury, and the away team just wanted a point.
Yeah, facts. So listen, get them safely, mate. And Barca are 1-0 up. And, mate, they're a problem. I can't lie. Yeah, but this game's been lit. Maybe they're all rushing home to watch this.
Question to ask you is what they like defensively, because I always say with Barca, the football with panache, but you've seen many times in football, the team that plays with panache in major tournaments, when it gets to the final, it's the streetwise team who actually wins it. We want the team with panache to win it, but it doesn't always work like that. Holland, 1974 against Germany, streetwise Germany beat them. There's many a time we've seen it even before.
There's only 3 teams. There's only 3 teams in the league. I just checked it right then. There's only 3 teams in the league that have conceded less goals than them. Getafe are mid-table. Yeah, and then Bilbao and Athletic. Other than that, they've got the 4th best defence. But the amount of goals this lot score is a joke.
You can imagine it. We're the sort of spoil sports and the kind of how I say it, ugly sisters that can ruin Barcelona's life if we play them in the final. And you know what? I want revenge for that, because at the end of the day, I don't like fairy tales.
They're not getting to the final. Inter are going to beat them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, so I suppose Inter are going to be ugly sippers. Oh well, I suppose
the worst looking final would be Arsenal Inter. The best looking final would be PSG Barca.
Well, you know what. Sometimes there's a glass slipper, but there's hopefully Cinderella doesn't get to wear the glass slipper.
And on that bombshell, get them safely, mate. I'll share your Insta post in a minute. KennyKen1972 on Insta. All roads lead to Madrid. We're out. Laters.